In this video and following videos, I'm going to explain the factors that are influencing the crude oil price. So there are many factors that can have impact on a crude oil price that we can name some of them as U.S. Weather, U.S. economy, international economy, U.S. dollar exchange rate comparing to other foreign currencies, geopolitical events, supply and demand statistics, and crude oil and petroleum distillate inventory. First, U.S. weather. Heating oil is a refined distillate of crude oil, and it is being used by 5.7 million, around 6 million households in the United States for space heating and warming of the water. And around 80% of those 6 million households are living in northeast part of the country. So if there is a cold winter, if there is a cold wave hitting this part of the country, we're expecting to have higher demand for heating oil, and it could be a good signal for price of oil being potentially increased. I put a link here in this slide that to EIA website, Energy Information Administration, that includes the heating oil prices. So in addition to looking for data such as temperature or having a potential prediction of wind chill, there's also another indicator called HDD, or heating degree days, that is a good metric for, is a good sign for energy demand. So HDD represents the amount of energy being used to heat the space inside the building to reach 65 degree Fahrenheit. The lower outside temperature, it means that more energy has to be used for space heating. So historical and forecasted HDDs can be found in this link. It takes you to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It can be a good metric to for expected demand of heating oil and eventually crude oil. So one thing that we have to note, that HDD is always positive, there's no negative. In case for the summer that the outside temperature is higher than 65, and then energy has to be used to cool down the space to the 65, we use this metric called CDD, or cooling degree days, and it is a measure for the amount of energy needs to be used to cool down a building. The other weather event that could potentially affect the crude oil price is a hurricane. According to EIA, Energy Information Administration, around 3% of the offshore oil production and 45% of U.S. oil refining capacity is around the Gulf of Mexico, and this is the section that, in case of hurricane, that could potentially be affected, and supply can be interrupted. So around 24 hours before the hurricane, the site, which is the production site or drilling site, has to be evacuated. And after the hurricane, it takes around at least for 72 hours to remand the facility and the site and start production. In case of hurricane, there are two possible things that can happen. The interruption in the production because the site has to be evacuated, or if the hurricane is severe, it can also damage the facility. For example, in the two cases, the Hurricane Katrina in 2005, 12 rigs in 30 platforms were damaged, and 18 of those platforms were completely destroyed. Hurricane Ivan in 2004 damaged 7 rigs and destroyed 2 rigs and 7 platforms destroyed. And it had consequences, flooding and so on and so forth. And this can be an indicator that this can cause the supply interruption or the prediction of supply interruption. When there is an interruption in supply, price can potentially increase. I put a link here, and it takes you to National Hurricane Center. It is a good resource for getting information about hurricane events. The official hurricane season begins on June 1st, and it goes to November 3rd, with a peak around mid-September, September 11th. And during this time, Weather Channel provides information through Tropical Update report.